Good day to you one and all, it is I, Justin Hawkins, and this is Justin Hawkins Rides Again. Now today I'm talking about one of my favourite artists of all time, Tom Petty. Tom Petty of Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. One particular song, my personal favourite, Even the Losers, which came out in 1980. It was part of Damn The Torpedoes, you know that brilliant record? Anyway, I'll talk all about it in a sec. You guys really ought to listen to Tom Petty if you haven't started doing that already. Justin Hawkins Rides again. I'm in my grandmother's gate cottage up in the Highlands of Scotland. It's rather nice up here, actually. Even the Losers is featured on their breakthrough hit 1979 album Damn The Torpedoes. And Damn The Torpedoes is one of my favourite records of all time, and one of the reasons why I like it is the artwork. Regard. So it's a photograph of Tom Petty, but it's kind of, they've framed him slightly off centre. He's wearing a red t-shirt that nearly matches the sort of paper that the photographer's using as a background. They often do that, you see, but it's the composition is so awkward that you can see the roll of paper at the bottom of the frame and then a bit of the wall behind it on the right hand side, and it's just I don't know, there must be... I could look at that picture all day and just wonder whether that was deliberate or whether it's just he particularly liked himself in it, or whether there was something that they're trying to say about the true nature of the art that we perceive and how glamorous it really is when you sort of look behind the sheet of paper that you're standing in front of. Anyway, this particular song was inspired by a night that Tom had spent with a woman called Cindy. I don't actually know how my producer comes up with these facts, but it's brilliant. The song was inspired by a night that Tom had spent with a woman named Cindy and some friends in his hometown of Gainesville, Florida, when he was young. And it was also during that night that Tom Petty had an epiphany, and he realised that he needed to be in a rock and roll band. Not just in a rock and roll band, the figurehead of a legendary rock and roll band. That's what he decided that night. During the recording session, Mike Campbell, who's the guitar player, was struggling to come up with a guitar solo, and then Tom Petty just said to him, "Yeah, why don't you just do," in this voice as well, he said, "Yeah, why don't you just do what Chuck Berry would do? Yeah, do that." And then within minutes, the guitar solo was recorded. I remember that guitar solo, it's all stuff like this. I'm probably going to get the key wrong. That's a Chuck Berryism, isn't it? Probably doesn't go like that. I'll try and play along to it in a minute. But obviously Chuck Berry is one of those people that have inspired all the proper rock guitar players, and not least Mr. Angus Young from AC/DC. Anyway, before the track starts, there's this female voice, and you can hear it saying, "It's just the normal noises in here." And that voice is Campbell's wife, Marcy, and it's from a demo recording that they made in Campbell's home. And he was complaining about the sound of a nearby washing machine. And that's what she said in reply. "It's just the normal noises in here." Tom was known as a staunch guardian of his artistic control and artistic freedom. In 1979, he was involved in a legal dispute when ABC Records was sold to MCA Records. He refused to be transferred to another record label without his consent, which is fair enough. I actually think that's a thing that can't happen nowadays, is it? And unless the label that you're on is a subsidiary of a major, and then it gets absorbed. Well, I mean, it's already been absorbed into the major, and then I suppose the imprint name just changes. All the personnel changes. In the olden days, when you used to do record deals, you'd be able to put a thing called a key man clause in. That means that, say Richard Halibut comes down to a show. He's the only person that believes in your band, and he works for Big Arsed Records Inc. And he goes, "Yeah, I want to sign your band to my label, Big Arsed Records Inc., or whatever it's called." And then, so this one individual is the key to all the resources that this enormous piece of infrastructure has. And then you have all that at your disposal. But then they let him go because his hand remains on a female co-worker's shoulder for just a little bit too, or something like that. I'm making this up, but for whatever reason, Richard Halibut doesn't work at Big Arsed Records anymore, and nobody else in that organisation believes in your band. What are you going to do? You're going to languish in contractual obscurity until such a time as somebody like Prince writes the word slave on his face and changes the way we think about music. But in those days, it's a ballsy move to actually refuse to be transferred. I don't even know how he would have the power to do it. You would need hits like, you'd need an album like Damn The Torpedoes to have any sort of cachet or gravitas to be able to sort of insist on something like that, I think. Anyway, some outlets have claimed that the Red Hot Chili Peppers single Danny California, which I've never heard. I mean, I don't know how that goes. Presumably it says something about California. There might be a funk riff in there. Anyway, it was released in May 2006 and it bears a close musical similarity to Tom Petty's Mary Jane's Last Dance. Maybe it was just inspired by it. Who knows? Anyway, so Tom Petty said in the Rolling Stone magazine, "I seriously doubt that there is any negative intent there. And a lot of rock and roll songs sound alike. Ask Chuck Berry. The Strokes took American Girl for their song Last Night." Totally true. And I saw an interview with them where they actually admitted it. And that made me laugh out loud. I was like, okay, good for you. If someone took my song note for note and stole it maliciously, then maybe I'd sue. But I don't believe in lawsuits much. I think there are enough frivolous lawsuits in this country without people fighting over pop songs. Could have made a good amount of money as well with that Strokes hit, couldn't he? But yeah, what a decent, upstanding chap. And then he died of an accidental drug overdose at the age of 66, 1 week after the end of the Heartbreakers' 40th anniversary tour in 2017. That was at the back end of that period of time in 2016, 2017, when a lot of the real greats died. And that was the one that really made me really sad. There's so many Tom Petty songs that I just adore. I think he's one of the greatest songwriters ever, really. I actually went to see him play. I think it was in 2009, maybe. It must have been 2009 because it was at the Hollywood Bowl, and I went to see Tom Petty, and it was just like it was a nighttime gig. Obviously, it went dark, and then no intro tape, no production, no bells and whistles or anything like that. Everyone was just standing there waiting, and then we heard like the click of the drumsticks, like 1, 2, 3, 4, boom. First song started, lights came up, and Tom Petty was already on the stage. It was all about the music. That was the whole thing. It was a really authentic and pure listening experience, and it's just a brilliant show. And afterwards I was walking back into town from the Hollywood Bowl, and I probably shouldn't be flattered by this, but somebody thought that I was Tom Petty. They actually thought I looked enough like him to perhaps be him, despite the fact that how much older was he? How old would he be now? He'd be 73. So he was 26 years older than me. I mean, yeah, I've had a hard life, but it's fair enough. I was flattered at the time, but then it only occurred to me after, wait a minute, he's a lot older than me. Anyway, let's have a look at this song, see what's brilliant about it.
It's just the normal noises in here.
Referring, as mentioned before, to the sound of a rogue washing machine being engaged at the inappropriate moment. I know I probably shouldn't say this, but every time I hear that lyric, it was nearly summer, we sat on your roof and we smoked cigarettes and stared at the moon. That just makes me want to get up on the roof and smoke a cigarette. Two entirely dangerous pursuits, one, with immediate peril, and the other one with longer lasting health adverse effects. So there's the first of those sort of Chuck Berryism. You'll recognise that phrase as obviously it's the sort of thing that Chuck Berry was doing all the time. He would hit like the root and the fifth, and he'd bend up to the fifth from the string underneath it. So this is that kind of stuff. Even in the beginning of the Highway to Hell solo starts like that as well.
Baby,
Tom Petty stuff, when it comes to the sort of choruses, it's just the simplest thing and really, really satisfying to play. Imagine. Something like that. So there he is, straight in with a guitar solo after the first chorus. And he's doing that same sort of Chuck Berry phrase, but it's 5 frets up now. It's sort of like at a D position. I love it when he does it. When he sort of bends down in a dissonant and emotive way. It's just brilliant playing. So what's that phrase there? It's almost like that, but it's kind of implied more. There's still some sort of note holding happening from the first A. Yeah, it's because it feels like the guitars are sort of doing something like that. And the bass is staying on the, like it could, the bass would be well within its rights to be going. But he's not doing that, he's actually staying on the A, so this is kind of like. Yeah, okay, so it's implying a G there, but the root's staying on an A, and then eventually the bass goes with it and goes to the G, and that's how that middle section resolves. It's all sort of suspended and it's tense, and he's talking about the sort of stark realization at the end of this wonderful night that he's had with Cindy, as I mentioned earlier. That it's just a fleeting moment, you know, this isn't a forever thing that he's talking about. And I suppose that G is when it all sinks in. And then back to that brilliant chorus. Then some of Mike Campbell's guitar playing stuff there is sort of hinting again at the Chuck Berryisms from that solo. It's back. Lovely fade out, just with Mike Campbell going. It must have been the temptation to duck walk throughout that solo must have been irresistible. But there you go, that's my favourite Tom Petty song. We'll talk about Tom Petty more, I think, in the future. There's so much stuff in his oeuvre that demands a closer look and listen. But why not start with Damn The Torpedoes? It's an awesome record with some great artwork. So please, to enjoy. Just Hawkins writes again. It's just occurred to me, this is one of 2 of my favourite records that feature the main artist standing there with a Rickenbacker in their hands, and the other one being Rick James on Street Songs. Anyway, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, watch one of these 2 videos, and listen to the music of Tom Petty. Nice one. Cheers, guys.